We are really close to spring, and let's be honest here. A lot of people don't trust Rich Rodriguez, including an article that I read earlier today to choose a quarterback, among other things. Do you trust Rich Rodriguez? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, guys? Welcome back in. My name is Mountaineer Paul. I am your host here. Welcome back into Locked On West Virginia, where we're talking Mountaineer spring football today. Spring football is very close. We are, let's see, right around 20, 21 days away, 22 days away from the spring game, and a week and then maybe 8 or 9 days away from the start of spring ball. So it's here. It's upon us. And choices are being made even today. And choices are going to be made going forward. Thanks for making us your first listen today here on Locked On West Virginia, where we're going to be talking about our friends today from 5 Hour Energy. And, have your cake and drink it too. Birthday cake flavor is back. No fork needed. Vanilla cake flavor, caffeinated kick and no sugar. It's party time. Order now at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. And like we said, thanks for making us your first listen and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we're talking about your team, the Mountaineers, every single day. And I got to be honest, guys, this is going to be a fun episode. I've been looking forward to doing it. I put a lot of research into this one, which, to be honest, a lot of it I already know. But, I'm always double checking and making sure that I believe what I believe, right? Sometimes you can fall into the trap of maybe going with the status quo. Do I challenge my own opinions enough? Do I challenge what other people think enough? Am I afraid to make that parent mad? Because that is absolutely something I struggle with. Parents message me all the time, a lot, daily. And, especially if I'm talking about their kid and they get tagged and it's not positive, it can be hard for me because I want to be friends with them or friendly. I don't want to run into them at the game and have to square up. You know what I mean? Whatever. In all seriousness, though, I want to. Everybody likes to be liked. It's tough in this business when you have to give your personal opinion, whether it's right or wrong about a player. So on this one, we're going to be talking about some things. We're going to talk about we're going to be updating not only the spring showcase, what's it going to look like? Because what it looked like last year was a total, it's a far cry from what we've always known it to be. In segment 2, we're going to ask some questions about the roster. Did they improve, right? Where did they improve and how, at what position groups? I saw Mike Casaza and Chris Anderson did something similar to this. And so I took the 7 out of 10 that they did, and I'm going to either agree or disagree. And then obviously spring battles is where we're going to start. I read an article, and I'm not even going to give this guy credit because I just don't want to. He was clearly rage baiting West Virginia fans, and I fell for it, but it gave me an idea for the show. And I'm good for some rage bait. But anyways, I read an article yesterday asking about trusting Rich Rodriguez, and he even gave reasons why he doesn't trust Rich Rodriguez. He goes back and lists, before Pat White, obviously he had somebody starting ahead of him, and Adam Bednarik, and obviously didn't make the right choice that year. And what about at Arizona? And he listed another quarterback. And then what about at Michigan? Was Shoelace always the guy there? And, just asking all these questions. And he even talked about Cam Vaughn, how they didn't give him enough time at quarterback. And can you imagine Cam Vaughn running Rich Rod's offense with the 2,000-yard running back Trey Stewart that they had, in the read option, which I admit would have been a dynamic option in the run game. I mean, Cam Vaughn was a quarterback in high school, so he came to college to potentially do that. Him with Trey Stewart, who ran for 2,000 yards 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, at Jacksonville State with Cam Vaughn in the read zone would have probably been incredible. But they still had a really good quarterback that year, Tyler Huff, that ran for like 1,300 yards. So it's like, realistically, could Cam Vaughn have done any better? But his whole entire driving point here is, how do we even know that he's going to get it right? How do we know he's going to get it right away? He talked about last year. He said, obviously last year Nico was chosen and was obviously not the right choice. It was Scotty, and probably should have been Scotty from the beginning. But I don't agree, and here's why. There was nobody knew that Scotty was going to perform as well as he did at times as a freshman last year. There's no way to know that. We thought we had a team that could compete a little bit last year. I think, we were just a couple players away from being a bowl eligible team. And I think Rich Rod thought, if we hadn't had the injuries, specifically if Nico would have stayed healthy, like with his foot, and actually been able to run like he was against Oklahoma State whenever he was bulldozing people, I still wonder what that could have looked like in the read zone part of it. Although Nico's not a blazer and the offensive line wasn't great, I still think that there maybe been a couple games we could have played better at. Anyways, back to the point here. Do you trust Rich Rod and all that? And I understand why that question's being asked. I have questions. Here's what I'll say. I wouldn't be surprised if he got it wrong first and got it right later. You're always doing checks and balances. You're always getting a little better. So let's say Michael Hawkins starts the year and he ends up not being ready yet. Well, then you go to Scotty Fox and maybe he's not ready yet. And then you go to one of the freshmen and boom, you hit on a guy. Well, that doesn't mean that freshman should have started all along. I mean, it's impossible to see that before anybody's taking a snap, So sometimes, and we saw it last year, I think we had as many as 5 guys rotating, I think it was 3 or 4 rotating early on. So, my answer to this is I think Rich Rod will get it right, but I'm not going to say that I trust him to get it right from day one, from the first snap. And I don't think he would say that he could do that. I think he would say we might need to tinker with it a little bit. So, I'm saying both. I trust him to eventually get it right, but I wouldn't put my money on it and say that it's right from the first snap. And that's at multiple positions. He gives his coaches the free will to do whatever they want, it would seem, because Jack McNeil kept Kimo Macaniole in, and Rich Rod didn't make him change that last year, from what I understand. So to think that this is the indictment against McNeil, by the way, that I was thinking about earlier today. To think that Donovan Haslam was so sought after on what a little he put on tape that Tennessee would give him a $600,000 deal to come play for them. And we made him sit on the bench last year for most of the year and played Kimo, who was ranked dead last out of all guards in the country, and Walter Youngbear, who was ranked in the 200s. How is that justifiable? I don't know, and I'll never know, and I'll never understand. But either way, it's one of the very few black marks I have against Rich Rod since he started. I don't agree with him not making him make that change, and I don't know what went on there. I wasn't in the building, so I can't say that he didn't try, but I mean, I'm assuming if he wanted it to happen, it would have. So let's get to the spring battles here. We're going to try to keep this. We might have to spill into segment 2 a little bit on this, but it took me longer to get through the opening here than I thought. But obviously, we're starting with the quarterback, right? And that's the headline. Hawkins, might be the front runner. It's so close, I think, here. I don't think he's going to have it handed to him, and I think Rich Rod won't name a starter till after the spring anyways. We know that. That's just how he operates. But he's not giving the Big 12 a preview in April necessarily, right? So, but what can we evaluate? Well, we can look out there and the spring game, and we can get intel like who controls the tempo better, who processes quicker. Rich Rod will let some things out. He's last year with Scotty Fox, he let some things out. Who commands the huddle best? who limits mistakes best. And you best believe I'll be trying to get all my sources on board to try to give me something all off season. I do every year. So think of it like how, the Diamondbacks manager, he talks about spring training. You don't just evaluate box score numbers. You evaluate decision-making, situational awareness, command. By April 5th, we won't have an official starter, but I think we'll know and be able to read the tea leaves, right? So that's my goal here. But, if you're making me pick, God, I don't want to make anybody mad. I still have a gut feeling that Scotty Fox Jr. is going to walk out there first. But I won't be surprised if Mike Hawkins overtakes it at some point. That's my official answer. I know it's kind of a BS answer. I know it is, but that's truly how I feel. It's, to me, in my head, it's so close between them because Scotty, you can't underestimate a year 1 to year 2 jump. You can't. You just can't. And obviously Hawkins is dynamic. And we had, ever since I had that guy from Oklahoma come on, who's the color commentator, it's changed my whole viewpoint on Hawkins because I used to have Scotty steadily ahead. And now talking with Hawkins' dad, Mike Hawkins' dad, and his brother's dad as well. Same guy, obviously. And Teddy Lehman, my mind's changed. And I think that Hawkins may be more talented, obviously, but Scotty's got to jump on the system. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not doubting anybody here. I'm just saying my gut tells me Scotty first. That's all I can say. Number 2 is obviously who becomes the guy behind Cam Vaughn, because Cam Cook, because Cam Cook is the only running back with Division I experience, obviously at TCU, and that does matter. Martavis Boswell is explosive. He's talented. Amari Latimer is a big-bodied freshman with maybe the most upside of any running back we've brought in a while. But proven reps matter, and obviously Cook is running back 1. There's no doubt. The real question is who becomes running back 2 if Cook misses a series or a game or more. Because last season showed, if anything, what happens when the depth isn't ready. Spring reps here are going to be huge this year, guys. We're going to have to get a number 2 guy ready. And the realistic part of all this is when you look at the running back side of the roster, it's so talented that it's insane, but there's nobody ready. Even Boswell, you can't say is ready. He's been in community college. So JUCO. So, Christopher Talley, Martavis Boswell, Amari Latimer, obviously Sir Paul Cheeks, who's injured. Which one of those guys is going to be ready when their time comes? It's really interesting to talk about. I'm going to go lean towards Latimer, and here's why. And I have been the whole offseason. Because his brother is in college and knows how to navigate college and can help him navigate college and this whole world that they're in. And I think that gives him a little bit of an edge. But I wouldn't be surprised to see another guy either. All right, so obviously that's running back. Now, after the break, can they find 5? Because let's be honest here. Let's be blunt. All this unit has to do is show up, and they're 15 steps ahead of 2025. They brought in some experience in. They brought actual tackles with repetition in. They even brought some potential continuity in with the 2 Jacksonville State guys. But the big spring question, I think, is can West Virginia identify its starting 5 before spring ends? That's what we need to know. If yes, massive start heading into fall camp. If no, we're still searching in August. That could be a killer for this team in 2026. We talk about it next here on Locked On West Virginia. Stick around with me. All right, guys. And of course, we can't go anywhere without our friends from 5 Hour Energy Shots. And right now, guys, welcome to the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft. With 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy, there's something to prove and have for everyone. The board is set. The flavors are ready. And I've got number one pick for the 5 Hour Energy Draft. And I'm going to go with Blue raspberry. It's a sweet, tangy flavor with a sour taste that nature couldn't make, but you should have. Bold blue raspberry candy flavor. It's got bright, smooth, nostalgic taste. There's a smooth, easy drinking texture with it, and it's reminiscent of blue slushies or hard candy. So it's got that clean and sweet finish. But I mean, classic grape and cherry, those are always going to be, can go-tos. Fruity rainbow. Confetti craze is another one. Obviously, that's, you try not to paint as overly sweet here, but it is a very balanced drink. So I would definitely check that out as well. If you want to talk about an underrated flavor, by the way, if you haven't tried cotton candy, also I'd give it a shot too. So 5-hour energy shots give you a great boost with zero sugar. We know that. And, they have a limited time flavor for most of these. So you'd love to see if you could come back, guys, and let me know how they are if you try one of these. Find your new 5-hour energy shots today online at 5hourenergy.com, or you can go to Amazon. Of course, we can't forget about our friends, and we love our friends at FanDuel right now. With FanDuel, and it's big time right now, right? We know that FanDuel is in the big time. They're right in the middle of it. And if you've ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use Profit Boost on any NBA future pick, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip or two. That's right. Flights, tickets, and the whole experience can be yours to be had. Now, you can not only pick your cash, you can also send you to the finals. So that's pretty cool. When you're playing with FanDuel, you can win cash, go to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started and use your Profit Boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win an NBA trip to the finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. All right, guys. I've got a cord in the floor here. 1 second. Okay. It's segment 2. This dew is for you. We're going to crack open a dew, get a sip. That classic dew flavor. Don't judge me. Somebody's judging me. All of you that are watching right now, just let me know in the comments if you just judge me. Be honest with yourself. Spring practice. Can they find 5? Probably the most important question of the offseason, maybe including quarterback, because we saw it last year. You can have a team that doesn't have an answer at quarterback like we did against Houston, a ranked team. And if your offensive line plays well, you can run the ball. You can do a bunch of different things and help the quarterback play. So it's the most important question, right? I think anyways. But I'm curious how you guys feel about that, because obviously you could say quarterback and I wouldn't be mad. But outside of that, I would say, you got to make a choice between one of the two. So let's try to find 5 here, because this is not easy. It would be easy to go Nick Cray, Landon Livingston, and try to pick 3 other guys. I have 2 prevailing thoughts on this. Number 1, Nick Cray may not be your left tackle next year. Not that he's bad there. He just may be better somewhere else. Landon Livingston might play guard and not center. He may be better somewhere else. So, those are things I don't know the answers to. A guy like, I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Isosa got that center job, or I wouldn't be surprised if Amari Grayson, who's 6'1", right, got that center job. There's a ton of other people like this. The 5, I'm going to say, are positionless outside of 1. That's Kevin Brown. I've got Kevin Brown starting on this offensive line this coming year. Everything I've seen from him this offseason says that he is the prodigy that we thought he was. He's elite, and he's already the strongest player on the entire team, which is insane. And that's per multiple lifts. Somebody posted the lifts from all the offensive linemen the other day. Kevin Brown was number 1 in almost every lift as a true freshman. So he is the 5-star player we think he should be, even though he's a high 4-star. Every scout that I've talked to said, I don't know why he's not a 5-star. So I consider Kevin Brown a 5-star player and probably the greatest offensive line prospect we've gotten. I put him just a little bit ahead of Wyatt Milam, and that's saying a lot. I know that's saying a lot. Trust me. I realize what I'm saying when I say that. I'm telling you, I think Kevin Brown will be a step ahead of Wyatt Milam as far as, their careers, in my opinion. Zach Frazier, obviously the best. I don't know. I can't go that far, but, he can maybe get in that conversation. We'll see. Kevin Brown, I'm going to go with Devin Vass to win a job. I wouldn't be surprised to see Carson Cassidy get there. I'm going to go with Nick Cray, Landon Livingston. So that's Kevin Brown, Nick Cray, Landon Livingston. I still think because of the continuity, you have to pick them for now. Nick Cray, Landon Livingston, Kevin Brown. I'm going to put Cassidy off to the side for now. Devin Vass. This fifth one's really hard for me because I can make a case for a bunch of guys. I know a lot of guys like Wes King. I've watched a lot of his tape. Personally, I don't know that he's pretty good in pass pro. Yes. As a run blocker, I don't know. I have questions. So, and I can show you guys that tape someday. It's not bad by any means. Not saying that, but I think there are guys that we brought in that are better at run blocking. And I just wonder how much, of an emphasis they're going to put on run blocking. That's the thing. If we're going to be a major run blocking team, probably going to go with a guy like Amari Grayson, even though he's only 6'1", is an elite. He's shown to be an elite run blocker up until now. He might be one of the guys you have to go with at either right guard or center. If it's not him, it's going to be either Wes King or I think Malik Agbo as well has a chance to win a job. So just so there, I gave you 5 or 6, 7 guys, but that's the best I can do right now. Defensive line. I'm going to try to come up with 3 for a 3 down front. And then if they flip to 4 down, I'll try to do that too, which is going to be difficult. But, I think number one, you're probably going to have, it's not easy here either, but, I think Corey McIntyre Jr. is, going to be on that defensive line a lot, as one of your guys for sure. Nate Gabriel obviously is the starter, by the way. Nate Gabriel, starter until proven otherwise. Jalen Thomas, Corey McIntyre. If you're talking about 3 guys that can just control the line of scrimmage, I think, and we're not talking about pass rushers. We're talking about 3 defensive linemen on the field that can help control the line of scrimmage when you're in a 3-3-5 setting, because all they're supposed to do is eat up blocks. Those would be your best 3. They're not the most athletic 3, but they'd be your best 3 for just being in hell to run against. I wouldn't mind that, for a heavy set. But, I will say KJ Henson's probably going to play a lot. I love his film so much. If you're talking about with 4, I would probably go with, Corey McIntyre and Nate Gabriel for now. I do think Jalen Thomas, the big nose that I love from JUCO, is going to work his way into a spot, but I don't know if it'll be right away. And then on the edges, if you're in 4 down, I'll probably go with like a Toby Hostrip, Ezekiel Durham Campbell, or Holloman or David Afogo. One of those combination of 4. It'll either be like a Durham Campbell and a Holloman, or a Hostrip and a Holloman, or a Hostrip and an Afogo, or even a Hostrip and a Campbell maybe, if you're playing 4 down with 2 defensive ends. But I don't know that they're going to do that this year. If you're talking about just straight up edge guys, I've got Toby Hostrip and Ezekiel Durham Campbell both, I think, are your your two highest upside edge pieces, but Holloman and Afogo have a lot of experience too. So those four are pretty good. You know, there's a lot of upside there. Just depends on a lot of things, obviously. Linebackers, you know, well, that's tough, really. You got to get three. So my three are going to be, oh, excuse me, sorry. Yeah, oh man, it's so tough. It really is. Malachi Hood, Ashton Woods, and the combination of a couple other guys that I don't know. Tyler Stolsky maybe in the middle. If you told me Tolsky was in the middle, Woods and Hood were on the outside, I wouldn't hate it. So maybe you go that route. You know, Ben Cutter will play in that. He'll play a factor. I don't think he'll be a starter necessarily, but we'll see. I think Ashton Woods is going to rise above this year. I've already said that multiple times. Maybe he starts out back up. You know, I wouldn't be shocked on that. He's 6'3", 225. He can run like a deer. I just think Ashton Woods is a guy, man, to watch out for. So where we at on time here? We'll go to break one more time, guys. We'll come back. We'll finish this up on the other positions right after the break. Stick around. This is Locked On West Virginia. We'll be right back.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. It was a heavyweight showdown between number 3 South Carolina and number 7 LSU, and the Gamecocks rose to the occasion. South Carolina secured a hard-fought 79-72 victory to stay atop the SEC standings, using a balanced offensive attack to outlast the Tigers. Tessa Johnson led the way with 21 points, while Raven Johnson added 19. Medina Okot dominated the paint with a double-double, finishing with 12 points and 17 rebounds, while Joyce Edwards chipped in 10 points to round out the scoring. With the statement win, the Gamecocks now turn their attention to a road matchup at number 23 Alabama on Thursday. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Thank you guys for being here on this one. Make sure you like this video before you leave. Subscribe if you're a new guy around here, a new gal. Definitely drop a comment below and let me know how you feel about all these different competitions. And obviously be a cool person in life and keep coming back. You know, corners, I'm going to go through this quickly because I want to get to the spring part of this. Corners, you know, they haven't listed very many guys as corners. I have no, I'm going to say Damon Allen, Rayshawn Reynolds, Chams John, which is spelled D-I-A-G-N-E, by the way. It's like Diagne, but it's pronounced like John. You know, are 3 or 4 guys that I think could make an impact there. Obviously, Jameer Latimer should be a corner, but they've got him listed in nickel. So I don't know if they're all going to play all positions or what here. Pal Drell is also another guy, but he's so undersized. So I don't know. I just think maybe they're going to play safeties at every position. I have no clue. Safeties, by the way, I'm picking 3. Jameer Latimer. Let's see. Pal Drell, possibly, maybe. I don't know. Kamari Wilson, obviously, will be one. Matt Sig. I'll go with Matt Sig to come out on top at some point. All right, let's get to the spring practice preview part of this because it's interesting, obviously. And, you know, look, I think there's a lot to talk about. Last year's spring showcase, right? It wasn't a traditional spring game. It was a free admission event that had ticketed entry. Donations are encouraged to West Virginia Medicine Children's Hospital. Almost Heaven Village Festival went on. There was a kickoff concert from the Powell brothers. There was an abbreviated scrimmage. It wasn't on ESPN Plus. There wasn't a radio broadcast. and no controlled competitions. It really felt more like fan engagement and controlled reps and less like a full spring game evaluation. So my question is this the new normal or was that transitional? Because this year, obviously, spring practice starts on March 7th, and we have 4 sessions before the break, and then on the 18th, we have the spring game. So, the Golden Blue Showcase, I'm sorry, maybe it's April 5th and not 18th. I don't know where I got the 18th from on here. But will we see extended live periods? Are we going to see the quarterback competition and be allowed to actually watch some of that? Will the secondary rotation be on display? Will they hide the depth chart? These are all questions that I have, because if the defensive line and secondary aren't settled and the offensive line's not settled and we can't watch any of this, it sucks, right? So we won't get the evaluation reps that we need, or I won't. But if Ridgewood wants controlled information, then you can expect a similar structure this year. I have no idea which one it's going to be. I would imagine, if I had to guess, if you made me guess, that he loved last year's version, where he didn't have to show anybody anything, right? So, do we see the bigger corners play in this, in this new defense? And do we see a quarterback that might separate? Because that would be cool. And with the offensive line form, because if 7 of the 10, position groups aren't settled by the end of camp, then what are we going to do? I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be okay. I just wish that we could watch some of the spring is all. It's a long spring, Thanks for being here, guys. I'm going to bounce. I will be back later to talk a little bit more about all this, but as we, as intimate, he makes sure we have some kind of thing to talk about, maybe basketball or something. We'll figure it out. Make sure you show up for it if you can, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for making us your first listen and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're talking about your team every single day. Don't forget about the Locked On Everydayer Club, which is obviously very important to us. If you could definitely check it out, it would help out. Remember, you get ad-free audio. You get a members-only Discord where you can talk to our hosts, and that is at Locked On Podcasts with an S.com/everydayer with an ER club. Locked On Podcasts with an S/everydayer club, and the link is in the chat as well for those of you that are watching live. So I will see you guys in a bit. Thanks for being here. And we will try to discuss some other things going on regarding West Virginia sports, because there are a couple of things that are happening. Baseball is big right now, and they're playing well, and women's basketball's been playing pretty well at times. But, there's a lot we can touch on if we have to go that route. But, I may try to get one of my interviews up. I've got a couple interviews that I could do as well. We'll figure it out. Thanks, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to cue those country roads. I'm out of here.